I think just the first thing to say, that the mobile industry in Africa has the potential really to lift growth. I mean, and of course also technology in general, because Africa has a once-in-a-generation opportunity to leapfrog by using mobile technology in just in terms of leapfrog economically. But we've got a deficit in a sense. I mean, it's not a deficit, but it's an infrastructure deficit. I mean, we've been seeing the mobile industry in Africa has been growing at a massive scale. I mean, in Africa now, the mobile industry is actually bigger than a fixed line industry. Which just means compared to other continents, this is the only place where it's taking place.
But what kind of facilities are in short supply, and how can this gap be closed?
Generally in Africa, there is an infrastructure deficit across the continent. I mean, there's anything from, the lines. So we're struggling around the continent with infrastructure broadly, whether it is electricity supply, whether it is road, whether it is rail, and infrastructure for telecommunications also similarly is a problem. But we also have the other problem in terms of more directly linked to mobile technology is that the infrastructure underpinning it that other countries has. The first thing is Africa has a problem in terms of fixed line infrastructure. We don't have it, so that's why we want to use potentially the mobile. If we can put a mobile infrastructure there, it could leapfrog.
Okay. When we talk about telecommunications infrastructure in Africa, why are we lagging behind here?
We're lagging behind because geographically it's very difficult in Africa. Because a number of smaller countries. It is really fragmented infrastructure in the African continent. Difficult, some countries very mountainous. It's very difficult to put in infrastructure, and of course the cost. Most of infrastructure in many African countries is still the same infrastructure to be left by the colonial powers. So really, from an economic point of view, broadly, infrastructure is a problem. Telecommunication is another real big problem in terms of infrastructure.
But how come Kenya, this is quite popular and successful?
Kenya is actually extraordinary, is the leading country in the world in using mobile technology for the financial sector. I think what has happened there, they've really, there's been political will to drive, the sector. But not only that, I think, what they managed to get right is they managed to get a public-private partnerships, which is very, very important. And also the Kenyan government itself has also played a role, in actually pushing the sector.
Now, when we look at the future of the continent and mobile money, what do we expect to see in coming years?
You know what? Massive, absolutely massive potential. I mean, if you think about this, the problems that we have now on the continent, most people don't have access to finances. Now, not only that, or most people rather don't have access to banks. And most Africans actually live in rural areas. Now, if we can develop the financial sector, we immediately can bring in people into the financial services sector. But not only that, I mean, there's now examples, and again, I mean, where even in places like agriculture, where mobile technology being used in education, people are coming up with applications, to help learners learn, but also, I mean, a new thing that's come up, even using, the mobile technology for insurance purposes.
Know more. eNCA.com